Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. This is the global community for adult survivors of complex trauma living with CPTSD symptoms. And we have been all showing up here every Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, for over 5 years, almost 6 years now. Tonight I am doing, hey, welcome to John Harvey, welcome to Ninja Taco, warm welcome to anyone who is new to our channel. We've been showing up here. Hey, Broken Childhood, long time no see. Hey, Diane, so good to see you. So we've all been showing up here for over 5 years, almost 6 years. We talk about what works in healing complex trauma, CPTSD symptoms, and we talk about what doesn't work. We share vulnerably, we come here, we hang out in the chat box. Today I'm doing something a little different and I'm getting you guys sort of ready. I'm taking a cue from many of you, and what I am doing is I am preparing to transition some of the Monday night videos. I'm going to be doing some workbooks, some art journaling, some like therapeutic sort of expressive modalities like watercolors and colored pencils and coloring and crayons and workbooks and stuff like that. We talked about this about a year ago. Several of you have sent me emails over the past year saying, hey, remember when you said we were going to start doing this on Monday nights? And we have not started doing this on Monday nights. So when are we going to do this, Adina? Are you still going to do it? And so I wish you could see my table right now. I laid down the book, and on my table, along with my colored pencils and my little stickers and my watercolors and my paints. And I took a picture of it for the thumbnail for today. And what I'm going to do is I am going to share with you guys a new book, a new workbook that was just published last week by Jodi. Aman. You guys know that we're a fan of hers. And she came on here a few years ago and talked with us about her very first book called You Won, Anxiety Zero. And that book was really, really incredible and very helpful. Transformed the lives of many people. And now there's this workbook. And interestingly, this workbook was published for teens. But the title of my video today is A New Workbook Helps with CPTSD. And it's titled Anxiety, I Am So Done With You by Jodi. Aman. And then I put in parentheses, not just for teenagers, not just for teens. So why am I saying that? And why am I opening up our channel to younger viewers and listeners and participants? Well, guess what? First of all, many of us who are living with CPTSD symptoms as a result of complex trauma, which basically is ongoing interpersonal abuse, where we were unable to get away. We were trapped. They were up there and we were down here. We were in a one down position. And that happened over and over again over a long period of time. And it's caused us a significant amount of frustration, pain, anguish, anxiety, symptoms of depression, symptoms of PTSD. And this workbook is all about anxiety. And many of us who have experienced adverse childhood experiences, whether it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30, 40, 50 years ago, whatever it was, many of us have symptoms of anxiety, And we've also participated in some inner child work. Now, the young people who may find this video might not know what inner child work is, and that's okay. But what I'm trying to tell you is the reason why I want to share this workbook with you guys, knowing that many of you are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, some of you are even in your 70s. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because 6 years ago when I began this work, the average age of someone who would find our YouTube channel were women in their mid to late 30s, early 40s, men in their mid to late 40s, early 50s. Now, fast forward 6 years, and do you know the median age of people who are finding the CPTSDfoundation.org website? Do you know the median age of people who are finding the CPTSD chat YouTube channel? It's women in their mid-20s and men in their late 20s, early 30s. I have a few teenagers who have reached out for help. A few more girls than boys. But you know what this means, right? This means we're beginning to help people at a younger age. And how many of us say the words, oh, I've been healing for 10, 20, 30 years. I'm so exhausted. I wish I would have known when I was younger that I had some things that I needed to heal from so that I could heal sooner. So in addition to all of the free support groups we have over on Facebook, there's a support group for anyone who is an adult survivor of childhood abuse, who identifies with the LGBTQI+ community. There's one for anyone who is an adult who has experienced narcissistic abuse. There is a free group for men and women who are healing from ongoing interpersonal abuse. And they're healing together in a group. It's a co-ed group. There's one for women only, adult women, who are adult survivors of all forms of childhood trauma, childhood abuse. And the reason I say the word adult is because a lot of the things that we talk about in this community, they are not appropriate for young ears, not appropriate for really young children. And so I really want to drive home that if you're a young person and you're listening to this and you're younger than 18, I need you to know that this channel has a lot of adult content on it, and each of the videos have been switched to adult mode. And so it will prompt you to agree that you're an adult, and I would prefer if you did not lie and say you were an adult to watch these videos, because the content is not appropriate for children. So just please know that you're not alone, whatever your age. Please know that there's an entire global community on 6 continents in 186 countries. All of us showing up here, clicking on and watching a video every now and again, whether it's every week or every day or every month or a few times a year. Some of us are in the chat box, some of us are in the comment section, some of us are on Facebook in groups, some of us are on Twitter chats, but all of us are standing side by side in silent solidarity, cheering one another on and encouraging one another that it is possible to heal from abuse. Okay? It is possible to heal. So whatever you've been through, whatever your age, whatever gender you identify with, whatever it is that you are going through, I need you to know that it's possible to heal and that you're not alone. So without further ado, I'm going to share with you what I absolutely love about this new workbook titled Anxiety, I Am So Done With You. Let me go grab it really quick. It's right here on my table. But I will be doing like colored pencils and paints and stuff like this in the future on future videos. Let me get some water really quick. Hold on one sec. Okay, here we go. So Anxiety, I Am So Done With You by Jodi Aman. It says here, it is a teen's guide to ditching toxic stress and hardwiring your brain for happiness. There are 40 or more than 40 activities and journal prompts. You guys know I'm a fan of the journal prompts. Any Kenyans in the house? Any Katie Morton fans? I love the journal prompts. Hashtag KDFAQ. So I want to start off by sharing with you that this book that Jodi Aman has written, this workbook here, is broken into 5 chapters, each of them having 7 parts. Okay? 5 chapters, each of them having 7 parts, meaning that there's about 35 different things for you to fill out, and then there's extra stuff in here, places for you to journal, places for you to share, and it asks you really, really, really practical questions. What I love about this book is that Jodi has given definitions for things that many of us wish we would have learned when we were younger, when we were teenagers. But by a show of hands, anyone here on this channel, let's see, there are about 25 of you here right now. By a show of hands, how many of you were in the middle of being traumatized or abused, or at the very least in survival mode? In survival mode when you were a teenager, and you didn't get a chance to learn all kinds of things that you wanted to learn when you were a teenager because you were too busy surviving. By a show of hands. I'm raising my hand. Diane says me. Yes. Alice, Shelby, Marissa, Tabby-Ba, Melissa, Tammy, John Harvey. Shannon was too busy surviving. Kate is raising her hand. Sarah says thumbs up. That's me. Yeah. You guys. Yeah, Nicole says me. Broken Childhood is raising her hand. Poppy's raising her hand. You're so cute, Poppy. Special thank you and shout out to the Blue Wrench crew. I couldn't do any of this without you. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, everyone. You guys are incredible. So this workbook that is a teen's guide to ditching toxic stress and hardwiring your brain for happiness, I just got to say that I want to ditch toxic stress and hardwire my brain for happiness. Joey's raising her hands. Jeffrey's raising his hand. Yeah, everybody's raising their hands, you guys. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to talk to you about what I love about this book. I'm going to talk about some definitions. But I needed to tell you that, you know, talking about things that we coulda, woulda, shoulda, coulda learned during our teenage years, it has some anger and some grief attached to it, right? But we get to read this book, and I almost feel like I get to go back in time and learn things that I wished I would have learned a long time ago in a very age-appropriate way. I don't know about any of you, but my childhood, particularly my teenage years, were anything but age-appropriate. There was no age-appropriateness going on, okay? So here, for instance, Jodi talks about the word agency. Many of us on this channel are adult survivors of childhood abuse, childhood neglect, childhood maltreatment, adverse childhood experiences. Many of us score between a 6 and a 10 on the ACEs, study. Some of us here a 5 or a 4, but most of us between a 6 and a 10. Many of us a 10. And so here there's this definition that Jodi gives towards the beginning of the book in the introduction. And it's all about the definition of the word agency. I really want to share this with you all. I want to invite you, even though I have the camera pointed out like you asked at the ocean with the palm trees, I want to invite you to close your eyes, and I want you to listen to the definition of the word agency. Okay? So she says, think of yourself as an agent in your life. You know how a music agent gets the band jobs and contracts to propel its career? Well, you're an agent of yourself, and the band is your life. For example, you decide how you spend time with or what opportunities to go after. You decide who you spend time with, what opportunities to go after, and you decide how hard you try for them. Even when something bad happens, you choose how to respond to it. Your response can make you thrive despite it, or your response can make it worse. This is called personal agency. You have it. I have it. Everyone has this inner power source that influences how good a life we have. Now, I want to pause there, and I want to say that many of us here could be shaking our heads and saying, no, not everyone. Jodi says everyone has this inner power source that influences how good a life we have. I didn't have that. I didn't have choice, the power of choice. I didn't have the ability to be the agent in my life. I didn't have an ability to choose who I could spend time with and what opportunities I could go after. I wasn't given any opportunities. I was told that I had to stay home and pull weeds. I wasn't allowed to leave the house. I wasn't allowed to try hard for goals. I wasn't allowed to have a luxury like choosing how to respond to when something bad happens. I was just trying to survive. I didn't have an opportunity to thrive in spite of all of this. I didn't have any personal agency. How can she say that everyone has this? Well, guess what? We did have this thing called personal agency when we were younger. But guess what? We had, similar to this analogy that she gives with the music agent that gets the band contracts and jobs and so forth. So a music agent usually belongs to like a big, large conglomeration, like a company, like Sony Music or Columbia or BMG or the BBC or what have you. Well, we actually did have personal agency when we were younger, but we had this big conglomeration in charge of us that was filled with toxic, inappropriate, unhelpful, sometimes really horrible people. And they came in when we were trying to be the agent, and they said, nope, you want to be the agent, but I'm going to say no. You can't get the band that job. You can't offer that to them. You can't do that. You need to stay home and pull weeds. You're not allowed to eat that. You only allowed to eat this. You're not allowed to talk on the telephone. You're not allowed to go to your friend's house. You're not allowed to go to your room. You have to stay by yourself. And so that sense of personal agency that you had when you were a child was taken away from you. You were robbed of it. Okay? But Jodi goes on in this chapter and she says, this means, personal agency means that your happiness level is not determined by what happens to you. It is built on how you respond to what happens to you. You know what that means, right? How did you respond to what happened to you? Where are you right now? Are you hanging out with abusive, toxic, horrible, destructive people? Or are you here showing up for yourself, hanging out with people that you've gotten to know over the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years who care about you and who look forward to saying hello to you every week? We've been showing up here, right? Every Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, here we are. She says here, your happiness level is not determined by what happened to you. It's built on how you respond. I know how you responded. You somehow survived because you're a self-care badass. And you ended up here showing up for yourself. You could have given up and you didn't. Here you are. You showed up for yourself. You didn't only show up for yourself once. You've come back here. Here you are again. Welcome back. If this is the first time to our channel, this is your first time joining our community, welcome, welcome. We're so glad to meet you and glad to have you. We've been doing this now every Monday for almost 6 years. So Jodi finishes up this definition here, you guys. I really want to bring this home and land this plane on a positive note so that you really know that you guys are in charge of your happiness now. It might not feel like you are because many of you are still stuck at home. Many of you are still stuck living under the same roof with the abusive people in your life. But that's not how it's going to be forever. It's not how it's going to be forever, you guys. I'm going to land this plane on a positive note, and I'm going to listen. I'm going to let you see what she says here. I'm going to read this to you. She says, anxiety wants you to think that you have no agency, that you have no skills, no abilities to handle and create a life that you want. Well, guess what? Too bad, anxiety, because guess what? We do have it. We do have skills and abilities. We do have agency. Once we see our personal agency and we activate it, life gets so much easier. Oh my goodness, you guys. This workbook walks you through. She talks about so much. She touches on topics that are not often talked about, like the way that the pharmaceutical companies talk about medications and the stigma attached to mental health concerns and the stigma attached to medication and the misnomers and misconceptions of medication as it pertains to mental wellness. She also talks about how to activate our power. Okay? So she says here, I want to read this to you, okay? Because some of us have we have this niggling, we have this suspicious sense that somewhere deep inside of us we do have this power, we do have this thing, we have this like hope that someday it's going to be better. It must be in there somewhere. I keep getting told that it's in there somewhere. We have this deep knowing that things are going to get better. We're not going to give up, right? But we don't feel empowered and able to do what we need to do to make healthy choices in our lives because we feel very stuck. We feel overwhelmed. We struggle with low self-esteem, low self-worth, low self-concept. We struggle with anxiety. We struggle with feelings of depression, suicidality, self-injury. We struggle with these things. We struggle with not having supportive people in our lives. We struggle with what other people are going to think of us. We're so scared that someone is going to disapprove of us and abandon us and leave us all alone. We know what that feels like. That's horrible. We're so scared that if we get in touch with other people that we're going to fall into a toxic relationship and we're not going to be able to protect ourselves because that is the situation that we were in when we were younger. We weren't able to protect ourselves because we were younger. And we weren't the adults yet, right? Many of us, that was the case. So I want to share with you what Jodi shares here. And I really just, I'm so encouraged by the way that she's so vulnerable in this book. Okay? So she's going to talk about feelings of being out of control right now. So I'm going to read this to you. I'm on page 92 for anyone who has the book and you'd like to read along. It's titled Activate Your Power. She says, when I was struggling with anxiety, I was not willing to accept my powerlessness or surrender needing to be in control, like people were suggesting. Not a chance. Even the thought of surrender made me want to cringe and grab onto control even tighter, though it was painful. It showed up in decisions like these. If I don't spend much time with my peers, then they won't know how stupid I am and they won't hate me. If I don't put the papers in my bag in the right order, I might forget one. I have to do it so I don't mess it up. Wait, let me check one more time. Sift through the folder, try to make it right. Did I see all the papers? I better sift through the folder again. So let's just pause here And let's think about what this is. So, how many of us have ever felt like if we just don't spend a lot of time with people, then they won't have a chance to hate us. They won't have a chance to abandon us. They won't have a chance to neglect us or reject us, right? They won't have a chance to hate us. That's a lie that social anxiety tells you. I know because I have social anxiety. So when the next one is if I don't put the papers in my bag in the exact right order, I might forget one. And then we go through it again and again and again and again and again. What is that? What is that? That's anxiety. That's anxiety telling us that we're going to do it wrong. We're going to get everything wrong if we don't get it exactly right. I've told you guys several times, I used to count my vitamins. I had to count them. I would put them out in my little thing, the vitamins that I take in the morning. And then I would have to count them, and then I would have to count them again. And then I would need to take this one first, and then these ones second, and then these ones third. And I had to do them in a certain order. And it was very, 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 it was my anxiety showing up in such a manner that it mimicked obsessive compulsive disorder. I was not diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, but this is anxiety is what I'm getting at. So Jodi's sharing these examples with us here, and she says, and these are all examples that we feel like we need to be in control of everything. We need to control other people. We need to control the papers in our backpack. We need to control everything. So she says, if I didn't control situations, I thought that they would control me. I was wrong. Okay, yes, there are things outside of your control, like other people's choices and other people's behaviors, natural disasters, and accidents. And of course, these things affect you. However, there is something that is 100% in control: your responses, your reactions to what happens to you. You can either A, blow up these effects, increasing your suffering, or B, you can process and release the feelings. What actually happened only affects a very small percentage of your mood, emotional turmoil and wellness, comfort or discomfort in the world, and the view of yourself. You're actually mostly affected by how you think about what happened and how you make sense of what happened and what you do next. You have absolute power over these things. The initial pain from what happened to you is the first heartbroken circle from chapter 1, and then she refers back to this in chapter 1 she talks about the monkey mind, how we swing from branch to branch, and it's very similar to going from negative thought to negative thought to negative thought, and we worry. It's not even the pain of what we're going through, it's what will other people think of what it is that we're going through. Okay, so she says, instead of having this type of a mindset with negative self-judgments, blames, and worries, it is infinitely better for us to create uplifting rays around the heartbroken circle of growth, compassion, understanding, empowered actions, and deep connections, and watch that circle fade away. And more importantly, she points out here, you do not need to give up control. You can claim 100% of control over what matters most in your life. You can claim 100% of control over your happiness, your sense of peace, your relationships, your identity, and your view of the world. Despite what happens, you decide what you can do next to create the best result for you. And you can hone your skills to improve on that action's impact. Your personal agency is your most precious asset because it has the potential to make or break your life. You go from powerless to having much more power than you thought possible. It is real and lasting power that makes you feel secure and worthy. And there are bonuses. This power both highlights what is important to you and also reflects what you think you deserve, strongly informing your future decisions. These things become more conscious and aligned, which means safer, controlled, and better results for you. When you have no sense of agency, you end up defaulting to pseudo-power tactics like bullying, blaming, and controlling others to try to stabilize. These tactics will hurt you, and they will hurt your relationships, and they will increase your suffering. You'll end up with negative identity conclusions like I am a loser, And you'll feel terrified as life feels more anxiety provoking. So, you guys, I absolutely love this part here. Let me find where it is, where we talk about happiness. And let's see here. There's this happiness study that was done at Harvard, and she shares it with us, and it is so, so, so helpful. Let's see here. I had the page marked, and then I and then I lost the page. So hold on, let me find it. It'll just be 1 second here. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. It's on chapter 5. Chapter 5 is titled Self-Care is the New Healthcare. And it talks about the percentage of happiness breakdown. Okay? So she says here, I'm going to read this to you. This is one of my favorite parts. According to Dan Buttner, author of The Blue Zones, happiness can be measured by number 1, life satisfaction, number 2, a fulfilling purpose, and number 3, the life experience of enjoyment. When studying these measures on different populations around the world, he and his team from National Geographic discovered that 40% of happiness is dictated by our genes, our DNA. 10 to 15% is determined by luck, and at last, 45 to 50% depends on us. Depends on you. In this chapter, we're going to dive into each of these factors. First, we're going to talk about genes. Epigenetics, the study of gene modification, says that frequencies can change your genetic code adversely and positively. Emotions, words, colors, music, lights, foods, flowers, and pretty much anything has a frequency and can influence that figure of 40%. And then she gives a website here if you want to look into that. It's jodiaman.com/ditching anxiety. And then you can look up the word epigenetics. And then she moves on to the next statistic, which is 10 to 15%. And that's the one that talks about luck. Luck is out of your control. And so, of course, since it's out of your control, it invites anxiety. But think about it. Luck only affects 10 to 15% of your happiness. This includes good luck, benign or, middle of the road, not up or down luck, and only mildly bad luck. This leaves a very small percentage of your overall happiness for bad luck. I don't know. She says IDK, maybe 6% conservatively. Also, has something bad already happened to you? Every single one of us who raised our hands, yes. Well, then some of that percentage is already used up. So we know that anxiety wants you to obsess about the things that you have no control over. Anxiety puffs them up and makes them out to be a monster in size and intimidation, and as though it controls 99% of your life. But that's a lie, because it doesn't. It's less than 6%. It is not, let me turn the page, 1 second. It is not worth stressing over. Just keep honing your skills to handle challenges, and you will trust yourself to handle future bad luck. And then lastly, this is the best part. Are you ready for this? Lastly, there's the you percent. Your personal agency is in your hands. 45 to 50% of your life can be actively orchestrated by releasing what is not serving you and bringing in what improves your satisfaction, purpose, and enjoyment on the daily. Who knew? She says, well, you know, because now I've told you. So what you cannot control is dwarfed by the ability and potential of your response to improve, understand, or save the situation, and your actions mean more to your emotional, spiritual, and physical health than the things that you cannot control. Actions rule your relationships, opportunities, and choices, and how you see yourself. So in this chapter, she says we are going to harness the you percent. When you are proactively practicing these habits in your life, so much is possible. Specifically, happiness. Happiness is possible. And so she goes into detail in this particular chapter on prioritizing uplifting relationships, which, hello, anybody, I'm raising my hand. This is one of the highlights of my whole week. I love being here with you guys. So she says, good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. And she says, good relationships keep us happier and healthy, period, concludes an 80-year-old human development study from Harvard University. This is the one I told you about. She says, isolation has a long-term negative impact on emotional wellness. In fact, social and familial conflicts are the number one reason teens come to counseling. They are also the number one reason teens participate in self-harm and think about or attempt suicide. For example, nearly 40% of transgender people attempt suicide at least one time in their lives. When teens feel like an outlier, they feel different, or they feel like they don't belong for any reason, it affects how they think about themselves and how they feel and how they see relationships and really how they interpret everything else. So when the relationship issues are resolved and a person feels a sense of social belonging, anxiety and depression decrease. I'm going to pause right there and just remind every single person here that anxiety and depression and dissociation are all parts of CPTSD. Those are all CPTSD symptoms, right? So this talks about our relationships. And when we resolve our relationship issues, then we feel a sense of social belonging, and then our anxiety and depression decrease. So when teens are involved in a community, and I would venture to say anyone who's involved in a community who accepts them as they are, they begin to feel happiness again. Having good, close relationships is a factor that tops every happiness and longevity research study that I've found. People need other supportive people to feel worthy, safe, and have a sense of belonging. 3 essential elements of life satisfaction. Surround yourself with happy people who love you, and this energy will naturally rub off on you. And that is what you're doing by being here, right? That is what you're doing by being here. You are taking control of your relationships. Now, people can say, oh, that's not a real relationship. You only see them on YouTube. But I would venture to say that the relationships that I have cultivated with many of you here on YouTube, I've had the privilege of sitting down and buying many of you a cup of coffee. I've had the privilege of sitting down and having many of you buy me lunch. I have had the privilege of actually hanging out with several of you and meeting you in person, whether it's at a pancake house or a waffle house, or at a speaking engagement, or at a church, or in the middle of a road trip, or a roadside gas station, or somewhere where we met up for frozen yogurt, right? I mean, some of us have met in hotel lobbies. We've gone on silly, crazy car rides to go over to Starbucks together. Some of us have traveled several hours just to meet up at Panera and talk for hours. I don't know where you come from listening to this right now, but where I come from, that's relationship. I just described for you some of my most meaningful relationships. And they're with many of you here. Okay? So just know that when we think that we cannot improve our relationship situation, Please make sure that you're counting the relationships that you're cultivating here every single Monday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Please remember to include the relationships that you're cultivating in all of the the Facebook groups, the safe groups we have over on Facebook, the Twitter chats that people participate in, the daily calls. I do what I'm doing right now every single day, 365 days a year. Poppy has links if you're interested in that, but many of us hang out almost every single day. To me, I don't know about you, but that's relationship. That is relationship. Okay? So, one of the things I love about this book, I'm going to wrap this up, you guys. One of the things I love about this book, this workbook that Jodi has published, is it's very period specific. In other words, it's very 2020. She talks in here about social distancing. She says, you know, in the time of social distancing, this is more important than ever. We have to be a bit more creative about connecting. But since humans are highly adaptive, we can manage. Reaching out not only helps you feel like you're not alone in the universe, but it helps the friends and family that you are reaching out know that someone is thinking of them. Supporting others fulfills your need for purpose, making your life meaningful. A psychology study from Kobe College in Japan divided 175 college students into two groups. Don't miss this. Please don't miss this. One of the groups did nothing different from their usual lifestyle for a week, while the other group were given the task of counting their acts of kindness during the week. They were not asked to try to do things for others, just to write down what they had done. After a week, the second group reported higher levels of happiness. We need to see that we are making a difference. Having a purpose makes the daily grind, the effort, and the suffering worth it. And then there's a quote here from Mr. Rogers. There are 3 ways to ultimate success. The first one is to be kind. The second way is to be kind. And the third way is to be kind. Okay? Very simple yet very profound. Thank you all for allowing me to be in your life. And thank you for being in my life. It's very, very, very important. This is one of the highlights of my entire week. I enjoy spending time with you. And I really think it's important for you to know that during these times of social distancing in 2020, it's important for us to cultivate safe enough relationships with people who have our best interests in mind, whether that be virtual or in person. Okay? So please be gentle with yourselves because you're worth it. And I will be back here Monday, this coming Monday, and every Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And I would love for you to think of one thing you can do that is kind for yourself tonight. Just one thing. Maybe you can make yourself a cup of tea. Maybe you can go for a walk and get outside and just look up at the sky. Maybe you can just do a couple of deep breaths. Maybe you can drink a nice glass of cool water. Maybe you can just walk to the mailbox or walk to take the trash out if you want to. Or sit down and read a book that's uplifting. Okay? I'm really, really, really eternally grateful for each and every one of you. And I look forward to seeing you again next week, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Go check out Jodi Aman's. She has jodiaman.com and / Ditch Anxiety, DITCH Anxiety. She's got a whole bunch of really cool like quotes and information and articles and cool stuff. And, a lot of the work she does focuses on teenagers. And I don't know about many of you, but when I'm doing inner child work in my trauma therapy, anything that is focused at helping teenagers really speaks to my soul. Really speaks to my soul. So be kind and gentle with yourselves because you're worth it, okay? I'll see you soon. Good night, everyone.